Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to your daily dose of zombies news from the game and its community here on COD Zombies HQ. Thank you so much for tuning in today. As expected, Treyarch has released their first major zombies patch since the release of Mauer Der Toten. So without further ado, let's start today's show by digging right into it. Now you'll notice as we start going throughout this patch, there's some things that they fixed that we've known about and needed fixing. There's others still major issues that aren't going to be addressed in this patch that we'll talk about and hopefully Treyarch will fix later. But let's kick things off with the stability section here on Mauer, where Treyarch says they've added various stability fixes related to the main quest, the boss battle, and the Cerberus wonder weapon. Generally, when they talk about stability fixes, they're talking about crashing issues associated with those various events. There is a dedicated section on fixes and changes to the actual main Easter egg that we'll cover a little bit later in this patch. Next up, while people really like Mauer Der Toten and its degree of difficulty, the one big complaint I've seen from a lot of people is that as the rounds go up, there's usually one single round every maybe 10 to 15 where you get like 5 to 6 panzers that spawn in all consecutively, all within the same round. And while it does provide a degree of extreme challenge to have 4 or 5 panzers running around the map at once, a lot of people were saying, yeah, it probably can be dialed back a bit, and it seems like Treyarch agrees, saying that they've reduced the amount of Krasny Sol that spawns at higher rounds. So as a result, the map is made a little bit slightly more easier, but all in all, I think this is a good change that most of the community will agree with. Next up, they addressed a glitch that I haven't seen personally, but I can see why it would be annoying, where they said they addressed an issue that caused Klaus to sometimes attack a friendly brain-rotted zombie. And I don't think Klaus would have been able to take down that brain-rotted zombie because he is friendly. Klaus would basically be stuck on that target until that brain rot actually just straight up goes away. So yeah, definitely a good change there. Next up is something that Treyarch have tried to address before in prior patches, in prior maps. I haven't seen it talked about that much here in Mauer Der Toten, but it's an annoying issue when it happens, where they say that they addressed a rare issue that could cause zombies to use their ranged attack despite the player being in an accessible location. So basically, if the game thinks that you're in a location that zombies can't normally reach, all of the zombies on the map will just start whipping chunks of flesh at you, forcing you back down to a location where zombies can actually go and use their regular melee attacks on you. In the past, there's been instances where that ranged attack would just be triggered for no reason whatsoever, and it seems like there was some of that same problems here on Mauer, but hopefully they're fixed now. Next up, in the wonder weapon section, a good little change to the free wonder weapon Easter egg on the map, where they say that the Cerberus wonder weapon will no longer time out if it's not taken from the open safe after a period of time. So if you ever complete that Easter egg, but you don't want to grab the actual wonder weapon just yet, or you want your buddy who's like all the way on the other side of the map to come grab it, it won't despawn by the time they get there, and you or your teammates can grab it at any point in the future. Good change. Next up, there's a slew of main Easter egg fixes and changes. Let's start with the first one, where they say that they've addressed an issue that caused players to become stuck when remaining on a ladder during the boss battle teleport. This is an issue I think we've seen before, where during the actual teleport portion of the boss fight, it'll just teleport you to nowhere. It'll teleport you under the map, basically just taking you out of the boss fight entirely. The teleport system for those portions of the boss fight has always been really wonky since the map actually released, and it's good that Treyarch is slowly working on that. By the way, if you hear some rumblings in the background during this recording, there's a big thunderstorm going on right now, so hopefully it won't interfere with the audio too much. But moving on to the next one, they addressed an issue that prevented a special round from triggering immediately when entering the lab if the match was currently between rounds. This is basically the first time you enter the secret lab as part of the main Easter egg pretty early on in it, before it would delay progress of that next step of the Easter egg. No longer, so for speedrunners of the main Easter egg on this map, probably a very welcome little change. Next up, an interesting little change. They've addressed an issue that caused a carried quest item to appear on screen and sometimes block weapon fire while the player was walking backwards. So while you're holding the uranium device or the raw uranium, if you're walking backwards, you just straight up wouldn't be able to fire your weapon. But now it seems like Treyarch has indeed fixed that. The next change, I think, is in regards to the very ending of the Easter egg, where they say they've addressed an issue that could show Klaus visibly holding his weapon and a quest item at the same time. This is, I think, while he's supposed to be carrying the device at the very last portion of the Easter egg. Sometimes the game would glitch and it'd show him carrying it and holding his regular weapon. So honestly, just a fix for a small little visual glitch here. One big thing that I think isn't included, first of all, in this main quest section is I know a lot of people were having trouble building the uranium device where it would constantly block your progress whenever you took damage. It seems like that issue is a little bit less common than we first expected, but it doesn't seem like there's a fix for that glitch yet as of this patch, or at least if there is, they didn't talk about it in the official patch notes. Next up, it's time for some OUTBREAK, just general fixes. They've said they fixed a crash related to transitioning between regions in OUTBREAK. For those of you that still play OUTBREAK, probably a good little fix, right? Next up, if you ever played with the Shatter Blast mod on your weapon since the release of Mauer, you'll know that it is just crazy effective as of the latest patch. Well, this patch seems to change that. We kind of knew it was coming, that it was a little overpowered, and Treyarch seems to have caught on to how effective the Shatter Blast mod was, saying they've addressed an issue that caused Shatter Blast to deal more damage than intended. So long to the Shatter Blast weapon mod meta. You can go over there and join Deadwire in the once best ammo mods in the game section. The next change is over in the Perk section. They claim they fixed a crash related to Tombstone Soda. Obviously, if you're looking at this, the glaring anomaly here, something we've talked about for the last few days, is the issues related with Mule and the Wonder Fizz machine spitting out glitched weapons on the ground. We've talked about in the last two videos, I'm not going to go into detail, but it seems like Treyarch doesn't have a fix for that issue as of this latest patch. Maybe in the next patch, probably on Thursday, they'll go ahead and try to address that. So overall, a decent patch, not that big in size, but again, the map's only been out for a few days. They've only had a few days of working on updates. I would expect more to come very soon. In the meantime, though, moving on to our next story, a big warning for anybody that intends to get up into the high rounds here on Mauer. Anything above 60 plus, I've seen this stuff reported on. The first issue is in general at high rounds. Be very careful about using the zip lines. This seems to be an issue that crops up more at higher rounds than lower rounds, but you can just instantly go down upon reaching the top of the zip line, as several players have found out. Or alternatively, like this guy, you can just lose your access to use any kind of weapon in the game at all if the game decides to glitch out on you, with no apparent fix in sight, as using the rappel rope again would apparently just straight up crash your game. In a similar vein, for those of you using the well-known by now high round strategy of camping out within a safe room, in both locations used for this high round strategy in this room, players are reporting just randomly falling through the floor and into the alleyway outside of the bounds of the map between the two buildings, just resulting in an instant down. Again, this seems to be happening in both locations within the room that are used for this high round strategy, so if it does happen to you, it does seem like there's no way to avoid it, and unfortunately there's not much we can do until Treyarch again tries to address why these random downs are happening. Next up, in a small quality of life change that we might see happen in the future, is thanks to fellow zombies YouTuber Mr. Waffles, is a simple small change that'll help getting the subtitles a little bit out of the way of the main action on your screen, is where he requests that Treyarch add a feature to actually move the subtitles to different locations, and interestingly, Treyarch actually responded to him, saying that they shared his idea with the team. No promises obviously, but appreciating you elevate accessibility options for everyone. So an interesting little exchange between a content creator, Mr. Waffles, and Treyarch, and kind of demonstrates to me personally that yes, some of the bigger zombies creators on the platform do have a little bit of sway when trying to get in contact with Treyarch about various issues or suggestions for the future. So if we do see an option to move the subtitle locations in the future, you kind of know who to thank. But next up, in a follow-up to a very interesting story we covered yesterday, where the round peg, the Megaton, was trying its best to fit down the square hole of the rappel line and failing miserably, well, another player has actually experienced a similar but different thing, probably more terrifying than the Megaton, where instead of the big old nuclear boy getting stuck, Papa Panzer instead makes an appearance stuck within the ceiling here of Mauer Der Toten in the sewer access area, where you're not able to hurt the Panzer at all, but the Panzer can seemingly fire his flamethrower through the ceiling and injure the player. I'm not sure whether or not this would have actually soft locked the player's game where he just can't continue to the next round because the Panzer's always alive, so the game just won't continue, but I think if you get in a similar situation, you can actually run away to the totally opposite side of the map and hope that the elite enemies, in this case the Panzer, will despawn and then respawn on your location. But yeah, if you ever see random fire being fired from the ceiling here on Mauer, it's probably a stuck Panzer, and stay clear. But guys, that does wrap up the news today. I want to thank you so much for watching. Hey, if you did enjoy it, consider leaving a thumbs up on the video. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you aren't already. I normally don't really do this, but I do want to shout out everybody that has that bell icon, the notifications turned on. I see you guys coming into the videos super early, so special shout out to you guys. I appreciate your support so much. But once again, I want to thank you all for watching, and I'll see you with another Zombies news video tomorrow. Peace.